Those that are watching and those that will watch, we are here to give you an update on the Far West LHD Safe Space co-design. Feedback loop number 2. My name's James, one of the facilitators at Rose in the Ocean. And here I have with me today, Will. Say hello, Will.
Morning, everybody. Good to, well, not see you, but nice to hopefully you see us soon. Really enjoying the project so far and really proud of all the work everybody's put into it.
Fantastic, Will. And this is, as I said, this is an update on feedback loop 2, which we'll jump straight into because lots to get through. Of course, we always start off with the acknowledgement of country to acknowledge traditional owners of the lands on which we meet today and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And we acknowledge the Kanji people in that respect. And also like to acknowledge those with a lived experience, those that have had a suicidal crisis, been bereaved through suicide, and of course those that may have lost to suicide. So let me, if I can, please share my screen. We seem to have a participant joining us already, which is great. And thank you for those that can. So the process so far in terms of where we're up to, you can see, if I click on this little section, we are up to feedback loop 2. We've had the focus conversations, both with the lived experience and the health professionals, a larger lived experience session, feedback loop number 1, and the health professionals co-design session. And today, talking about and gathering a broader insight regarding progress made so far in the process and the project, and an opportunity to prepare information for the upcoming co-design session, of which we'll share at the end of this in terms of dates. So this is about presenting what we know so far, as I said, from the co-design sessions and the feedback loop 1 with lived experience and health professionals for the Far West LHD Safe Space. Some of the ideas that came out from here, the safe space ideas, and particularly the environment, permanent building, the idea of open space. I won't go through them all, but you can see them there. Some artworks in neutral colours, windows and natural light, mixed seating arrangement opportunities, some ambient noise. We talked about a afternoon table, some sort of massage chair, some tactile things as well, bit of therapy dog sensory objects, smoking area outside for those that need, and also the concept of a discrete entrance as well with Wi-Fi access, fully accessible to all, and maybe ability to have a shower too. In terms of the staffing, authentic, reliable, some security available, involvement of various community volunteers, peer support workers, spot people could be based from there. Access would be a 24/7 idea as a blue sky operating hours. Best time available between 4 p.m. and 10 p.m, ideally 7 days a week, fully accessible, all abilities. Talked on the idea of Blue Daisy being a potential name for the safe space, the experience being confidential, what happens there stays there. Mix of activities available, ability to go for a walk and talk, a welcome concept on arrival, speaking and listening, option for consumer to have say over carer's role or presence in the space. And of course, basic paperwork. So just some ideas there from the safe space. In terms of the values to inform the model, where we look there on the left-hand side, the New South Wales Ministry of Health guidance, a list there of what their expectations are. Then we look at the lived experience co-design process we're up to at the moment, the idea of privacy, empathy, connection, inclusivity, optimism, ownership and transparency are the values aligned there. Happy for you to share any comments if you think you need to, Will. Otherwise we can keep just pushing through. The draft principles that we've got to is this idea we respect and support everyone to chart their own journey. We believe everyone is a success story. Our place is your place. We welcome you and help you find what you need. Our door is open to all, and we will walk alongside you to find your right path. What happens here, stay here in terms of the draft principles. So the responses from the lived experience feedback loop 1, I was just the one response, and that individual agreed that the slides presented accurately reflected their own experiences and needs. They also agreed with the draft values and principles presented. There was one additional suggestion for the space to be core of hope on top of what there was Blue Daisy, but also encompasses connections, optimism, respect, empathy, holistic, optimism, privacy, quality, which comes from our values. and the meaning of core definition there, and the meaning of hope definition. So that was the one response in the survey. Responses from the health professionals. Again, one of the health professionals agreed the slides were presented reflected their experiences, and yet one of them disagreed that the slides presented reflected their experience, and that the slides depict a very negative and bleak look at the health professionals' views of ED, which does not reflect a personal experience. Will, did you just want to make a comment on that based on some of the conversations we had?
Yeah, and that reflects the previous feedback loop where we did address that, and it has been front of mind for us that this whole project, and for every LHD, it isn't about any explicit negativity towards ED, and it's in fact recognizing the crucial service that ED does provide, but also the fact that there are some services that ED is trying to provide, but the situation may not be the best for ED or the person seeking help in suicidal crisis. So not at all was the project meant to cast a negative cloud over ED services whatsoever. It's really about creating a supplementary service in the alternative safe space.
Absolutely, thank you. So what makes it hard for people experiencing distress to connect with the type of support they need? And looking at the comments there from that question: lack of knowledge, previous experience, fear of rejection or judgment. A service system can be difficult to navigate at times. Blocks that might come up, not knowing what is available and not knowing what they want or need, not knowing who to reach out to. What makes it hard for services to provide the types of support someone experiencing distress needs? And again, some funding arrangements, the fear of risk. Non-mental health specific services can feel as if they can't support with mental health, causing delays in the support. Training, not all services are funded. Not being able to cover that concept of 24/7, understaffed, or challenges at recruitment stage, and some services working in silos and not collaboratively. What should an alternative to ED look like? Operating under strong governance and policy, but built to be adaptable and responsive to local need. Peer-led, with consistent support of clinician when needed, so unnecessary pressure isn't placed on peer work support workforce. Available after hours, safe, easy to access, strong partnerships and referral pathways, non-clinical, co-designed and co-delivered by people with lived experience, good escalation points and training for all staff, and that idea of a no wrong door approach or no wrong door approach. Not driven purely to achieve an outcome, key performance indicators. So what was explored at a health professional co-design session? Well, the findings from the feedback loop: 1, location of the safe space, the connection pathways to and from that safe space, and the staffing and workforce development and support. So some of the areas that need agreement, the values and principles, what will the safe space hold itself to in terms of those? The location of where this safe space would be, will there be a safe space or where it will be established? The connection pathways to the safe space, how they access it, outward connections and partnerships, the idea of where will people have this safe space connect to. The service model, what support will people receive at this safe space? Staffing, who will deliver that support? The workforce development, how will staff capability be developed over time? Governance, who will be involved in overseeing clinical and operational aspects of the safe space? And the physical environment and accessibility, what does the safe space look like and feel like, and how do people access it? So again, just in terms of these next couple of slides, it's always keep our eye on the left-hand side in terms of the New South Wales Ministry of Health statewide requirements. So these are the essential elements that need to be picked up, and we can see the good experience. Sorry, Will?
Yeah, I was just going to add, James, as an update for anybody who is not necessarily directly participating in the process, but is following along and providing their responses via the survey. The previous session, which we're updating on at the moment, we had a traffic light system of ideas that needed agreement or resolution on. And some of those might have been, as you saw in feedback loop 1, that they fell perhaps outside of the ministry's requirements or capabilities, or there was just generally a misalignment with expectations of the participants themselves. And so the big step from the previous feedback loop was moving all the amber and red ideas in the HP co-design perspective column into green. And happy to report we did do that with some careful deliberation amongst participants. And so today it's really just going through what has changed, what has been agreed upon, and making sure that we are across all those ideas that have been settled upon.
Yeah, great. And so, which is good to hear. So there's obviously no reds. There are a couple of oranges, but that's within the lived experience group. So as you can see there, we've got alignment against these areas, particularly the location of the space between the lived experience and the co-design. So I'll just keep pushing through some of those, Will, to just show those here. So location, what has been explored, the location provides a welcoming, non-clinical and homely feel. What is still to cover, where it'll be located and how close its proximity to the ED as well. So again, the connection pathways to safe space, agreement, alignment across both these between the lived experience and the health professionals. You can see there, nothing other than green, which is great. And we've got to that agreement as well. Do we read through them? Will we happy just to leave it up for a second? I think
that's fine. Also, as a note in the survey for anybody who is going to be jumping on there, and we'd love anybody and everybody to do so, you will have copies of this in that survey as well if you have any thoughts on that. Some key things, as I recall from this conversation, was really getting a clear idea as to what is this providing. Is it going to be accommodating for, say, drug and alcohol needs, or is it purely just about suicidal crisis? And the agreement was to understand that there is services for drug and alcohol available. There is a no wrong door approach here, though. So if somebody does present and is referred to another service, to keep that in mind, but it really is first and foremost a suicidal crisis support service.
Yeah, and I think that's important, that aspect, in terms of it's about safety and recognising that all guests in the safe space are safe at all times. So obviously, thank you. So the outward connections and partnerships, again, agreement here. We got to agreement here, or alignment across all of those from lived experience and health professionals. You can see that information, optional follow-up, communication, and what the other options might be. And again, alignment there with the health professionals. The connection pathways to and from the safe space. You can see what we've explored so far in terms of staff to observe and use judgment and need to consistently monitor risk and safety, as I mentioned. Clear policies and procedures, ensure the safe space is not promoted to be something it is not, as Will just mentioned, a place for drug and alcohol issues, wholly and solely. What still need to cover is how will service be promoted in the community and other health services? What partnerships will support local connections to and from services for guests of the safe space? And what arrangements or protocols will be put in place to support connection to and from the ED?
And that promotion one is I think, particularly important. You can build an amazing alternative safe space. You can have everything in there that lived experience wants, that health professionals need, but nobody in the community knows it's available or knows how to access it. It's sort of that build it and they will come maybe sort of problem. And so any thoughts around this, I especially would love to see about how do we make sure that the community knows where that safe space is, how to access that safe space and what to expect when they go there.
And that will be all part of the survey link we'll show at the final slide. So the service model itself, again, you can see alignment there, mix of activities, speaking and listening, confidential, connection, information, non-clinical approach, which again, we got agreement from. If you look also at the New South Wales Ministry of Health, that's one of their essential elements. So we got there, which was great. Not designed as a treatment centre. So a lot of things, again, we've got agreement on there. So we explored so far the purpose of the service is to provide a more suitable alternative to sitting and waiting in the ED and not designed to be a treatment centre. Still to be covered, how will the guest, family and or friends be supported in that space? Staffing, what we still need to get some alignment on or further conversation with the lived experience group is that the spot workers could be based there. Ideally speak with someone with lived experience around the same age, involvement of community volunteers. We certainly had a lengthy conversation around that concept of volunteers and what that would look like, and recognising that you can have a volunteer workforce, however they would need to abide by, understand and be trained and lined up with those that would be a paid workforce as such. So the peer, you can see on the right-hand side there, the peer workers should be paid to reflect their expertise. No volunteer roles in the short term, but longer term, we could use volunteer placements to develop the workforce.
And I would really like to acknowledge the robust considerations from the health professionals around intersectionality in staffing. There's a lot of consideration paid to not just having the right number of staff, the right hours of coverage, but also the expertise and the background, the cultural awareness, LGBT considerations as well. So it was really, really thorough and really heartwarming to see. You can see there is some orange and lived experience side of things, which we'll work through in the future, but really, really pleased to see that the health professionals have a really solid idea as to how the safe space will operate from a staffing perspective. One core thing as well is the clinical approach, and that was mentioned in the previous slide. This does outline a little bit more here that it is peer-led and it's peer-staffed, but that clinical support is there should it be required at any point in time, but it's on demand. So very, very much peer-led, which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah, great. So workforce development support, we need to still tease this out and explore a little bit further with the lived experience group, but essentially you can see a number of ideas from the health professionals in terms of what that looks like: clearly defined roles, good working relationships, mentoring, and like their cultural supervision, as you mentioned, Will, in terms of Indigenous and cultural capability as well. And I think that's that diversity sector that you were talking about, across the LGBTIQ+ as well. So we've explored all staff trained in relevant skills, inducted into policies and supported through supervision and mentoring. Clear position descriptions and process to support the peer worker role, and clinical support could potentially come from relationship with the SPOT team. Still need to cover the support or the peer worker staffing model with the allocation of a full-time equivalent to employees.
And that is going to be the most challenging thing, I think, for many of the LHDs, in that if you do have the 2 FTE allocation, how do you work that across the hours that you need to cover, which is where I think some of the really creative ideas in this particular LHD around volunteers, and that not to have volunteers for peer experience roles, but then you do have some sort of cadetship or something that does bring in people into that role that can help and train them up into an official role. So some really, really great ideas there, still yet to figure out the exact workings of them.
Yeah, good. So the physical environment accessibility, still a couple of things, or just the individual one there from the lived experience, the blue sky, the 24/7, that operating hours, obviously aligned to what resources are available. I'm trying to get a sense of what that could be and how we would do that. But the rest of it is covered off or agreed to in terms of green. Ideal to what the health professionals are saying, between that 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. each day. But again, trying to get a sense of, as Will just mentioned, that FTE, how can we be creative around expanding that over that time frame to make sure it's covered. So we explored the operating hours possible within the resources I just mentioned, and make sure the service is a culturally inclusive place or space for people with diverse communities through capable staff and trust relationships. Still need to cover off on the operating hours, still need to look at what style of a physical environment would be, and how the service will specifically address the needs of priority groups, and will information be provided across a variety of languages. The governance, still need to explore that with the lived experience group, but essentially under the health professional conversations, operating under strong governance requires good escalation points, co-delivered by people with lived experience, and a number of other things there as well. Manager to role to include governance and pick that up. Compliance with other legislation, of course. So we explored the client data and feedback should be captured to help demonstrate the impact of the service, that it's getting a sense of its usage. The service should sit within the existing governance structures led by the manager role. Still need to cover off on how the management service will be resourced, in clinical and operational governance, and what are the key risks in establishing the service and how they'll be managed. A bit of work to be involved there. How will people have the option to provide feedback on the service as well? No doubt that's the guests, but also those that are working there. And how will outcome data be collected and reported? So that's the governance section. So essentially, we've had that's the feedback loop. There's the link to this loop or to this session. Option to respond by Wednesday, the 11th of November. It's getting close, and then we have the next co-design session, number 3, on the 16th of November, followed by a couple of days later, feedback loop 3. Any other comments from you, Will?
Just the one thing that stood out from the previous session with health professionals, which, I would say is unsurprising in many ways, but also worth, I think, acknowledging, was just how tuned in health professionals are in this process to lived experience. At no point have the experience that they want X and health professionals say, no, it should be Y. They're very much echoing each other. And I think that speaks to just how much the health professionals understand the area that they're in, the work that they do, and what those in their care actually need. And so I think that's really worth acknowledging and remembering. But that being said, and not to sound like a broken record, that survey is really important. And so we do want to have as many voices as possible. And so whether you are a health professional already in the process and you've been attending these sessions, please jump on that survey. If you also know anybody who you think would like to have a voice in this, please send the survey to them. That data really does help us to look for any gaps or holes or left of field considerations that haven't come up in the process so far.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Jump on the survey, and we'll no doubt see you at the co-design session on the 16th.
See you soon.
Thanks, Will.
Bye.